The air in the wildlife sanctuary smelled of damp earth and pine needles. Sierra Vance wiped a smear of mud from her cheek, her hand still faintly tingling from the low-voltage shock, used to safely secure a distressed elk tangled in discarded fencing. It was nearing midnight, and the moon was a sliver above the Cascade foothills. She was tired, wearing her typical uniform of faded denim and a thick green foundation jacket. Her non-profit, Haven Crest, was her life. But it was also a constant source of anxiety. The local municipality had threatened to condemn their main property for a private developer's luxury resort. A shadow that hung over every late shift, she was preparing the elk for transport when her worn, cracked phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. A cold, sit-a-crisp number that had no business contacting someone who spent her nights talking to deer and owls, Miss Vance. A voice devoid of inflection and formality cut through the night. "This is Mr. Jason Hale, legal counsel for Innovia Global. Mr. Ryland Thorne requires your immediate presence at the Innovia Tower. A car is already en route." Sierra frowned, holding the phone away from her ear. "I'm sorry, who?" "I'm a vet tech. I'm busy. I don't know any Ryland Thorne." "He knows you, Miss Vance. Specifically, he knows you from the Pine Ridge fire incident 6 months ago. He recalls your composure." The voice paused a fraction of a second. "Your nonprofit's land development issue? Mr. Thorne has the immediate and absolute ability to resolve it." The threat of losing Haven Crest, the land where she'd saved hundreds of animals, made her chest tighten. She swallowed her pride and the exhaustion. "I'll be outside in 10 minutes. The Tower of Glass and Secrets. 40 minutes later, Sierra was climbing out of a silent, black sedan in front of the Innovia Global headquarters. The building was a monolithic spire of glass and polished steel, glittering with cold, indifferent wealth. She felt hopelessly out of place in her scuffed boots and mud-splattered clothes. Walking past security points where every employee looked like they stepped out of a high-end magazine. A woman named Clara guided her into a private express elevator that shot up what felt like 100 floors. Her ears popped and her anxiety mounted. The doors opened onto a reception area that was unnervingly quiet, lit by soft, recessed lights. At the end of the hall, silhouetted against a panoramic view of the sparkling city, stood Ryland Thorne. He was tall, lean, and dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit. Even from a distance, she sensed the tension coiling in his shoulders. When he turned, his gaze clear, pale gray at hers with an intensity that made her pause. She remembered him, the victim of a brush fire near a secluded corporate retreat. She'd been among the first on the scene, not as a vet tech, but as a local who knew the land. He'd been disoriented, his arm badly burned, but his first instinct was to confirm the safety of his team, not himself. He was the quiet strength in the chaos. "Sierra," he said, his voice low and gravelly, stepping toward her. "Thank you for coming. I apologize for the secrecy and the hour, but I am on a clock." A matter of minutes led her into a large, glass-walled office where digital screens flickered with stock reports and legal documents stamped with urgent red warnings. The air felt charged, like a storm was about to break. "You didn't come here for a donation, did you?" Sierra asked, cutting to the point. Ryland stopped, running a hand through his dark, precisely cut hair. "I came to you because you're the only person I've encountered in the last 5 years. So wasn't asking for something that began with a $sign. You put the well-being of a creature above your own safety that night. I need that integrity right now." He turned to a screen displaying a complex legal chart. "Isaac Hale, my primary investor and a hostile board member, is trying to initiate a takeover. He is using an archaic clause in the Innovia charter that requires the CEO to have a familial succession, specifically a legal spouse, to block any hostile seizure based on instability or lack of grounded commitment." Sierra stared at the chart, then back at Ryland. "I'm not following. You need a wife? Why haven't you found one? The charter requires the spouse to be untainted by any prior financial or corporate ties to Hale or his associates. Anyone in my social circle is already compromised or has a traceable connection. The board meets to vote at midnight." Ryland's eyes were shadowed with exhaustion and desperation. "I need to be married in the next 60 minutes. A legal ceremony witnessed and filed. He looked directly at her. A contract marriage, Sierra. Purely legal. You walk away with the deed to the Haven Crest land, legally secured and debt-free. You also receive a substantial retainer. No strings. No expectations. Only a piece of paper that gives Innovia the legal shield it needs. The thought of saving Haven Crest, her life's work, was a siren song. She knew this was insane, transactional, and possibly disastrous for her simple life. But the alternative, losing the land and the animals, was unthinkable. And what about me? What happens after you block the takeover? You're my wife, Ryland stated simply. You are protected by the full force of Innovia's legal team. After the immediate threat is neutralized, we discuss an exit strategy. If you want out tomorrow, you're out. But tonight, you need to sign a marriage license. Sierra looked at the luxurious room, at the billionaire who was pleading with his eyes but maintaining a facade of absolute control. She took a deep, steadying breath, the same one she used before approaching a frightened, injured animal. Okay, Ryland, I'll do it. The quick, cold vow ceremony was surreal. A retired judge rushed to the 80th floor, performed the briefest legal rites. The witnesses were Jason Hale, the stiff-backed lawyer, and a sharp-eyed board member named Mrs. Delaney, whose expression was a mix of disapproval and calculating curiosity. Sierra wore her muddy boots. Ryland wore his billion-dollar suit. Their vows were simple legal affirmations. When the judge pronounced them legally wed, the silence in the room was heavier than any spoken word. There was no kiss, no hug, only the exchange of signatures on a document that felt colder than the titanium pen used to sign it. As Jason Hale collected the documents to be electronically filed, the digital countdown on the central screen flashed, 15 minutes to board meeting. Ryland turned to Sierra, and for the first time since she entered the building, his composure slipped, replaced by a flicker of relief and a heavier weight of duty. The first part is done, he murmured, his voice close, not touching her. Now for the protection. We need to go to the penthouse. We can't be seen leaving the tower. Sierra nodded, feeling dizzy from the speed of it all. She was married a billionaire's wife, and her hands still smelled faintly of elk fur and disinfectant. As they reached the private penthouse elevator, Ryland stopped her, his silver-gray eyes focused intently on hers. Sierra, everything I told you was true, but there's one last critical detail that couldn't be revealed until the marriage was legally binding. That's why I needed you secured immediately. She braced herself, her heart knocking against her ribs. This felt like the real cost. The penthouse was not a home. It was a fortress suspended in the sky. The walls were floor-to-ceiling glass, offering a dizzying view of the city that now felt utterly disconnected from Sierra's life. The space was minimalist, filled with sharp angles and expensive silence. Ryland led her to a private study. He seemed different here, less CEO, more military strategist. The air was thick with unspoken pressure. Please sit. He motioned to a sleek leather chair. We don't have much time before Hale realizes the charter. Clause has been neutralized, and he tries a different angle. Sierra remained standing, her gaze sweeping the room. What is the critical detail, Ryland? I am your legal wife. The land is protected. What else can you do? Ryland walked to a concealed safe behind a modernist painting. He input a complex biometric sequence, and the safe slid open with a soft mechanical hiss. Inside, bathed in a cool blue light, sat a case. It was small, no bigger than a large jewelry box. It's made of matte black titanium and sealed with a lattice of interwoven silver wires. It looked like something designed to survive a war. This, Ryland said, lifting the case carefully, is the core reason for everything. It's not just about a title. It's about access and encryption. The revelation of the device Roland placed the case on the polished desk. The smooth, cold metal felt weighty, important. Innovia Global's true value isn't its market share. It's the proprietary code for our next-generation clean energy matrix. It's worth billions, but more importantly, it holds the key to a sustainable future for millions. Hale wants it for himself, to sell it to rival nations. He touched a scanner on the case with his thumb. A red light blinked, and the box opened. Sierra instinctively leaned closer. Inside, nestled in shock-absorbing foam, was not cash, not a hard drive, but a device. It was sleek, curved like a medical implant made of surgical steel, about the size of a large thumb. It had tiny, glowing blue filaments running beneath its surface. "What is that?" Sierra whispered, instantly recognizing its clinical, intimidating quality. "It's called the Chronos patch," Ryland explained, his voice low and serious. "It's a Life Vault access patch. It contains the biometric encryption key for the entire Innovia matrix. If this key is copied or destroyed, the company is gutted, and the technology is lost." "And why are you showing it to me?" "Because Hale and his associates have initiated a legal protocol that allows them to forcibly seize any corporate assets. Currently in my physical possession after midnight, under the pretense of preserving them from an unstable CEO, they can freeze my bank accounts, revoke my digital access, and force a transfer of the key." Ryland inhaled slowly, the weight of his explanation causing his shoulders to slump slightly. "Patch. The Chronos patch is designed to be untraceable and untouchable by any conventional means once it is activated by a unique biological signature. That signature is currently mine. But my access will be revoked at midnight." He looked at Sierra, his pale eyes holding a desperate plea. "The only way to keep the key safe, to keep it out of Hale's hands, is to transfer the primary activation signature to a new, legally protected holder, my wife, and to place it somewhere that cannot be legally searched or seized." The shocking proposal. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face as the implication hit her. She backed away slightly, bumping into the large desk. "Place it where?" she asked, her voice tight. Ryland didn't flinch, holding her gaze with unwavering honesty. "It must be biometrically embedded under your skin temporarily. It must be activated by your heartbeat and linked to your specific neurological patterns for a medical-grade device. Like this, the most secure rapid access. And legally protected location is a small insertion beneath the tissue of your lower back, near the lumbar spine. It's designed to be painless, fast, and easily reversible." The silence in the room screamed. The rain outside seemed to intensify, hitting the glass like a frantic heartbeat. She stared at the beautiful, terrible device, then at the man who was asking her to become a living, breathing vault. Her mind immediately jumped to the humiliating conclusion, fueled by a lifetime of insecurity and self-doubt. A billionaire, a cold contract, and a shocking demand on their wedding night. She didn't realize she'd spoken her thought out loud, until the words tumbled out, trembling, utterly disbelieving. "Wait, you're putting that inside me?" Ryland's silver eyes widened, not with lust or malice, but with a shock that was mirrored in her own expression. He immediately understood the crude, painful interpretation she had leapt to. His face hardened, not in anger, but in instant, painful realization of how insulting his desperate request must sound. "Sierra, no, I would never. I promise you this is a medical-grade subcutaneous implant, not a request for intimacy. I am asking you to carry the key to a $40 billion company inside your body, activated by your own life force. It's the only place Hale's legal team cannot seize it, because they cannot violate the physical sanctity of a legally married spouse without a federal warrant that will take days to obtain." He looked genuinely pained by her misinterpretation. "I respect your boundaries completely. The marriage is a legal fiction. The protection of this key is the only reality. A trusted doctor is on standby on the floor below. The procedure is simple, but we have less than 10 minutes before Hale's motion is filed." Sierra felt a rush of both relief and a profound sense of the absurdity of the situation. She wasn't being propositioned. She was being asked to become a human security deposit for a massive technological empire. She took a stuttering breath, looking at the Chronos patch. It was beautiful and terrifying. "It's activated by my heartbeat." "Yes, and it will remain dormant, a titanium shield, until the threat is neutralized and the transfer is reversed. But without it, Innovia Global falls tonight." Sierra, the woman who risked her body to save a trapped elk, felt a familiar surge of protective instinct. Only this time, the life she was saving was not furred. but a vast, fragile, technological dream. And this doctor is completely trustworthy? More than anyone in my inner circle? Dr. Leela Mir is a former military surgeon. She has no corporate ties. Sierra looked at the patch one last time, then met Ryland's gaze. The vulnerability in his eyes was the only thing that sold her. He wasn't a ruthless billionaire. He was a man facing the loss of his legacy, trusting a stranger with the final desperate move. She nodded slowly. "Get the doctor, Ryland." "Let's get this done." Ryland let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for days. The timer on his watch was counting down, the minutes slipping away. This was the point of no return. The study transformed quickly from an office into a sterile medical bay. Ryland had called down immediately, and within 3 minutes, Dr. Leela Mir stepped into the room. She was a woman of calm, authoritative efficiency, dressed in professional scrubs beneath a sharp lab coat. Her hair was pulled back, her movements precise. She carried a specialized case that looked more like military equipment than a doctor's. Baghdad Sierra took one look at Dr. Mir's unflappable demeanor and felt a sliver of her anxiety recede. This was not a corporate puppet. This was a professional, Miss Vance, Dr. Mir said, her voice a low, soothing contralto, as she laid out her equipment. "I am an independent consultant. My only loyalty is to ethical medical practice. This is a 5-minute procedure, minimally invasive, using a localized anesthetic. You will feel a dull pressure, nothing more. The risk profile is lower than a standard dental filling." Ryland stood stiffly by the window, his gaze fixed on the cityscape, deliberately giving Sierra privacy while making his presence known. The ticking of the clock on the desktop was merciless. "Ryland," Sierra said, her voice firm despite the tremor deep in her stomach. "I need to know what happens if the patch is. If it's damaged while it's in me." He turned immediately, his pale eyes intense. "It's designed to withstand extreme physical trauma. It's encased in hardened steel. If it were somehow destroyed, the encryption simply vanishes. It cannot be retrieved or copied. It's the ultimate kill switch. It protects the technology by making it disappear instantly upon failure. The threat isn't to you, it's to the data." Sierra absorbed that, nodding slowly. A digital dead man's switch. She was the temporary vault. She sat on the procedure table. Dr. Mir had swiftly assembled, taking a slow, deep breath. "Let's do this." Dr. Sierra stated, looking at the ceiling, trying to focus on the image of the Haven Crestland, the way the sunset hit the old oak tree where the rescued mountain lion liked to rest. "This is for the land. This is for the animals," she repeated mentally. Dr. Mir efficiently prepared the area on Sierra's lower back. "You're doing well, Miss Vance. Mr. Thorne, you should monitor the activation interface. We need confirmation the synchronization is flawless." Ryland moved to the desk, his hands hovering over the Chronos patch interface panel. He looked sick with tension, a stark contrast to his usual corporate glacier persona. He was not watching the medical procedure. He was watching the blinking digital countdown that represented the crumbling of his life's work. The current of fear and trust pressure came and went, sharp and brief. A feeling of invasion that made Sierra's fists clench involuntarily. She bit the inside of her cheek until she tasted copper. She was used to pain, used to grit, but this felt different. Not physical, but symbolic. The moment that steel patch slid beneath her skin, her life became fundamentally linked to Ryland Thorne's empire. She had the legal bond, and now she had the physical one. Dr. Mir applied the final dressing, her movements efficient and practiced. Done. The incision is sealed. The patch is dormant, awaiting biological sync. Ryland's attention snapped back. He stared at the digital readout on the interface panel, which was glowing a dull, cautionary red. It needs to register her unique biosignature to activate the corporate access transfer. Dr. Mir spoke calmly. It's designed to synchronize with the full cardiac output and neural rhythm of the host. Miss Vance, you need to relax. Your adrenaline is spiking. The patch won't sync under duress. Relax? Sierra laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. I just married a man I barely know and let a piece of military tech be implanted in me to save a company I don't understand. Relaxation is not an option. Ryland finally stepped forward, his eyes holding hers with an intense, steady focus. He did not touch her, respecting her space, but his presence felt suddenly closer, warmer. "Sierra," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, cutting through the high-stakes panic of the room. "Look at me. This is not about the money or the company right now. This is about me asking a human being for an unbelievable act of trust. I know what I've forced you into. I know you're afraid. But I swear, I will protect you from every consequence of this choice. Focus on the land. Focus on the animals. Focus on the reason you are here." His voice, stripped of its CEO polish and reduced to raw sincerity, was the most honest thing she had heard all night. He saw her fear and acknowledged it without trying to dismiss it. It was a strange, powerful moment of connection in the sterile room. As Ryland spoke, the chaotic pounding of Sierra's heart slowed, guided by the anchor of his steady gaze. The thought of Haven Crest, of the elk and the owls, became clear and sharp. She forced the tension from her shoulders, the heartbeat sink in the interface panel. The red light flickered, then turned a vibrant, stable green. "Synchronization complete, Doctor," Mir announced. "The patch is now online and drawing a low-level power from Miss Vance's unique biorhythm. It is sealed, safe, and fully active." Ryland let out a long, ragged exhale, closing his eyes for a moment. It wasn't a breath of victory, but of survival. He looked at Sierra, his expression softening into an intense respect that felt more intimate than any embrace. "You are the most resilient person I have ever met," he murmured. "I'm just a vet tech." Ryland Sierra managed, a faint smile touching her lips. "I'm used to dealing with difficult patients." Dr. Mir collected her equipment. "I'll be 2 floors down on standby should you need anything. You have my direct line. Rest, Miss Vance. The next 48 hours will be critical." As Dr. Mir left, the quiet descended again, now heavy with the weight of the secret Sierra carried. She was no longer just his contract wife. She was the physical storage unit for his legacy. The corporate skirmish ryland moved back to the main control panel. The countdown timer had hit 0. Midnight, a holographic screen snapped into life, displaying a digital conference room. Dozens of Faces board members from around the world flickered into view. Prominently featured was Hale, Ryland's rival, a man with a perpetually smooth smile that never reached his cold, calculating eyes. Mr. Thorne, Hale's voice was oily and polite. "We convene this emergency session to address the instability at Innovia Global. I formally move to invoke Clause 3. Article 5, the Leadership Instability Clause, and temporarily seize control of all corporate assets, including the proprietary matrix encryption, to preserve the company's value." A murmur rippled through the virtual room. Ryland stood tall, his hands clasped behind his back, looking directly into the camera. "Motion denied, Mr. Hale," Ryland replied, his tone ice. "The clause is nullified." Article 5. Section 7 clearly states that the Leadership Instability Clause is immediately void upon the CEO achieving a legally secured familial succession. Hale's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of pure venom. "You cannot be serious. The paperwork arrived 10 minutes ago. You rushed into a sham marriage with a low-level employee to dodge your responsibilities. That marriage is clearly null and void under corporate fraud statutes." Ryland pressed a button. The screen behind him projected an image of the marriage certificate, sealed by the judge and officially filed. Beside it was a live feed of the Chronos patch interface, now glowing a stable green, confirming the transfer of the main encryption key to his spouse's biometric identity, my wife. Sierra Vance Thorne is neither an employee nor associated with any foreign interests. She is an independent operator, and the contract is perfectly legal. Furthermore, Ryland continued, leaning forward slightly, his eyes boring into Hale, as of 1 minute past midnight, the core intellectual property, the entire innovia matrix encryption, was transferred to a federally protected, medical-grade life vault, activated by her unique biosignature. The data is now legally inaccessible to me, to you, and to the board, until she chooses to release it. Hale gaped. The shock was visible on his face, erasing the smugness. You can't be serious. You've secured the entire company through a— He paused, searching for the most insulting word. A marriage, Ryland finished for him, his victory absolute but silent. A legal, protective seal. The company is safe, Mr. Hale. Your motion is invalid. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have a wife to attend to. Ryland abruptly cut the connection. The holographic screen vanished, plunging the room back into quiet. Sierra, watching the whole exchange from the chair, felt a shiver run down her spine. Ryland Thorne was not just a genius. He was a warrior. He turned to her, the adrenaline leaving him suddenly, making him look utterly drained. He was married, and she was carrying the ultimate secret. The tension was gone, replaced by a strange, fragile new reality. "It's done, Sierra," he said, walking over and stopping a respectful distance from her. "You saved Innovia." She managed a weak smile, placing her hand gently on her lower back, over the tiny, hidden bump. "I saved my land, Ryland. You just made me a much more dangerous person than I ever wanted to be." She felt the metallic certainty of the patch beneath her skin. It was a cold, hard promise that their lives were now irrevocably tangled. Contract written not on paper but in steel and blood.